Okay, today we're going to talk about a huge fundraising mistake. I mean, even the smartest founders make this one. And it's got nothing to do with your pitch deck or how big your market is. Nope. It's all about trust. And it starts way, way before you ever even think about asking for a single dollar.
So let me ask you something. What's the very first step to raising money? Just think about it for a sec. If you're like most people, you're probably thinking, well, the pitch deck, of course, right? But what if I told you that's actually the last thing you should be worrying about? So here's what usually happens, right? The typical founder's playbook is jump straight into that pitch deck. They obsess over every slide, every number. But the best founders, the top 1%, they're playing a totally different game. They're not just building a deck, they're building a bridge of trust, one little interaction at a time.
And this quote, it just totally reframes the whole process, doesn't it? See, trust isn't some extra feature you tack onto your pitch at the end. No way. It's the sum of every single interaction you have with an investor. That first email you send, that first quick call, that's where the story really begins.
Okay, so how do you actually build this trust? Well, it all starts with understanding one crucial thing. Early stage investors, they're not just betting on your idea, they're betting on you. They know for a fact that markets will change, products will have to pivot, but a founder they can truly trust, that person can navigate any storm. So yeah, they're not just looking at your slides, they're looking for signals.
And believe me, investors are always watching for these signals. It's really less about what you say and so much more about how you operate. Do you actually follow up when you say you will? When they challenge an idea, do you get all defensive? Or are you genuinely curious? This is the real due diligence, folks, and it's happening in every single conversation, every single email.
All right, let's move on to our second pillar, clarity. Your ability to communicate clearly, it's not just some soft skill, okay? It is a massive signal. For an investor, any hint of vagueness is a gigantic red flag. It basically screams, this person hasn't done the deep thinking yet. And that's why your first real product isn't your app or your service, it's your communication.
And this is a really good question to ask yourself honestly. When you talk about your startup, are you actually being clear, or are you just throwing around a bunch of complicated jargon to sound smart? Because let me tell you, the difference between the two is night and day.
I mean, just look at the difference here. On one side, you've got all the red flags, the buzzwords, the super complex language, and that classic founder line, we're keeping our options open. But on the other side, the green flags are so simple. One problem for one user with one product, all explained in plain English. That's not just clear, it shows you're focused, you're serious, and you know exactly what you're doing.
So here's the bottom line. Making something that's really complex sound simple, that's not just a cute communication trick, it's a literal superpower. It proves you have total mastery over your subject, and it's one of the absolute fastest ways to build trust with an investor, period.
Okay, pillar number 3, movement. Look, early stage investors get it. They know you're not going to have a perfect product or giant revenue numbers right out of the gate. That's fine. What they are looking for is momentum. They just want to see that you're constantly learning, constantly tweaking, and making real progress week in and week out.
And this simple sentence right here, this is probably one of the most powerful stories you can tell an investor. It's a whole narrative of progress in one line. Last month we did X, that taught us Y, so this month we're doing Z. It proves you're not just busy, you're learning. And that is what real early-stage traction looks like. It's about turning action into insight way before you even have a paying customer. So what's the best way to show this kind of movement? It's with a tool that is criminally underrated in the startup world, the simple, regular investor update. Seriously, it doesn't have to be a whole novel, just a short, consistent email that follows these 4 steps. This one little habit creates a public record of your progress, and trust me, it keeps you top of mind. And that regular update, it leads us perfectly into our next big idea, consistency. We live in a startup world that's just obsessed with hype and those crazy hockey stick growth charts. But what really stands out? It's the quiet, predictable, day in, day out execution. Look, big flashy wins are great, but it's that consistent, steady progress that tells an investor, okay, this person knows how to build a real business.
And that right there is the core of what we mean by predictability. It's not about being boring or uninspired. It's about having a steady, reliable rhythm. When you consistently share what you've learned, and just plain do what you say you're going to do, you send this undeniable message. This is a founder who can build a company that can actually scale.
But consistency isn't just about how much work you're cranking out. It's deeper than that. It's about your direction. Are you just spinning your wheels, or are you actually moving with intention?
It's about your process. Can you operate like a pro even when you're just a team of one? And maybe the most important one, it's about your emotion. Can you stay calm and focused when the pressure is really on?
Okay, this brings us to our final and maybe the most counterintuitive point of all. So many founders think they have to project this image of total perfection, right? Like they have all the answers. But the truth? The fastest way to build real trust is to do the complete opposite. It's to embrace transparency. I absolutely love this quote because it's so liberating. Trying to pretend you have everything figured out is such a fragile strategy. And guess what? Investors can see right through it. The real sign of strength, of maturity, is being brutally honest about what you know, what you don't know, and, this is the key part, what your plan is to figure it out. So instead of trying to sweep your risks under the rug, just put them right out on the table. Imagine saying to an investor, you know what? Here's the single biggest thing that keeps me up at night, and here's the experiment I'm running next week to try and solve it. Wow. In that one move, you just changed the entire conversation. You're not a salesperson trying to pitch them anymore. You're a partner, inviting them to solve a tough problem with you. So let's step back for a second. When you put all these pieces together, the trust, the clarity, the movement, the consistency, the transparency, you start to see the bigger picture, right? You realize the goal was never, ever about having some perfect, flawless pitch. No, the real goal is to build such a deep foundation of trust over time, brick by brick, that when you finally get around to making the ask, the yes just feels inevitable. It's not some high-pressure sales close. It's just the natural, logical next step in the relationship. The real decision was made months ago. The check, that's just a formality. It really is that simple. Stop chasing the money. Start building the trust. Get that foundation right, and I promise you, the resources you need, they'll find their way to you. So I'll leave you with this. What is one small, consistent action you can take this week to start building that foundation of trust? I'm not talking about when you're ready to fundraise. I'm talking about right now, because that's where the real work begins, and that's where the real results come from.